All right, so let's talk about Hollowbody. This is a brand new survival horror game. Literally came out today as of recording, which is 9/12/2024. As always, whenever we beat a game or a game series, I like to talk about the mechanics, I like to talk about the story, and I like to talk about like an overall, what I thought are overall thoughts on everything involved. So first of all, mechanics. The combat is simple, which I think is fine because a lot of survival horror, you don't want complex combat in a lot of cases. It can get really overwhelming in a thing that's trying to build tension. So I don't think that's a bad thing. You do have a little bit of there's a little variety of weapons. We did miss at least one that I know of. Is a guitar. There's a board with nails. There's a sign that's called an axe. There's a shotgun. There's a pistol. There's a flamethrower, which we didn't get. I'm not sure if you can get that on the first playthrough or if you have to get that on the second playthrough. And there's a revolver. I think I already said that, but and the bow and arrow. So the little variations. The monsters are pretty simple in their attack patterns. Most of them like walk up, lumber towards you, and swing. There's a medium-sized one that does like this puff of gas around it that does damage, and then there's the really big, fast ones that will just like clobber you to death. Those are basically, other than the one boss, those are basically it for the enemy types from a mechanical standpoint. And then, let's see. Puzzle-wise, I think there's maybe... Now, again, this game is only a, like, 5-ish hour game. But there's like 4 puzzles, I want to say 4 or 5 puzzles, which isn't too bad. We've definitely played survival horror games where there's not been a whole lot of puzzles, so it's nice to see the puzzles here. They're not too complicated either. I do think most people could probably get through them, which is good to note. Controls-wise, the controls felt fine. It felt like a survival horror. The only thing I did not like is you do not get active control of the camera. The camera moves on its own, and you can nudge it, as the game describes it, which is where you can kind of like push it to the left or push it to the right, or you can kind of like move it around, but it still rotates on its own, which I'm not a big fan of, to be honest. I would prefer it to be either focused on the player where they can rotate it completely of their own, or have it to where it's always just behind the character. But so that one, not a big fan of, but it's not too bad. I didn't really run into any instances where that was really the case. Now, we did run into a few instances where there were fixed camera angles, and we lost track of our character because we were in like the confines of a fixed angle, but we were like on the edge of it, so we couldn't see our character because we weren't inside of it, but we weren't out of it either. There was a few angles like that. There's also a few like static angles that they're just there. They don't really have any reason to be static, which is an interesting design choice. But the one mechanic I want to discuss, and this is probably I do apologize if this comes off a little crass, if for the developer, but there is a section of the game where you have to collect a few items. I'm trying to keep it as spoiler free as I can, because this is a new game and I don't want to spoil any like story stuff, or any deep mechanical stuff. But you have to collect these things and then you have to go put them in a spot. However, upon collecting potentially the 4th thing, it skips the puzzle entirely. I've been told that that's potentially intentional. And I personally am a very, very, like, I don't like that. I very, very much do not like that. I am not a fan of having a puzzle object in my inventory, having a puzzle I can no longer interact with, and being locked into a sequence that puts us at the exit. Like, I get that it gives you the exit, like you can get out. The whole point is to get out of this section so you can get to the next section. The problem is there's no indicators of what's happening other than the music change and the walls having some sort of change. But I still have the item in my inventory, and I still know the puzzle exists. And the puzzle has like 2 components that are referenced of it. And the fact that I don't get to interact with either one of those potentially and I still have an item in my inventory is a very, very poor design choice, because the player does not know if they've messed up, right? And that is the thing. When you're developing something, you have to make sure that when you're building mechanics like this, that it is very obvious to the player that they have not messed up. Now, the way you could have done that is let them finish the puzzle and go through the gate. Now, if the intention was to be like, aha, I got them, take the item out of their inventory. That's the change I would make. If you want to be at like, gotcha, it's a fake puzzle, then I would take the item out of the inventory, just because having that item there means that I feel like I have to search to get back to that puzzle to finish that puzzle. But even though it's possible, it's very, very difficult, because it changes the landscape of the area. So, and I've been told, now I haven't done this obviously, but I've been told that even if you do put the last piece of the puzzle in, nothing changes. You still get locked into that in sequence that takes you to the exit. So I'm really, really not a fan of that. I cannot express enough how terribly it felt as a player to have something be like, okay, I'm here to solve a puzzle. Okay, I'm at the end, but why do I still have items? And the problem is if you take the exit, that item disappears, right? So I feel like I missed something in a game that's exploration based too. And this is why I think it's even worse in a game where you're supposed to explore to find ammo, to find loot, to find like healing items and notes and signals and stuff like that. When you incentivize that exploration and then chop it off at the knees in an area, it feels really, really bad to do, because now I'm being punished for exploring because I grabbed an item too early essentially and got teleported away. And you cannot go back. I literally reloaded and tried it again, and you cannot go back. Not a fan of that design. I hope the developer does something to make that a little bit more clear, that it's supposed to be like a red herring or something like that, because for all intents and purposes, it just feels like I missed a whole section of game because something wasn't working right. And that's not the feeling you want to get from a puzzle, like, ever. So that aside, mechanically, it's fine. I think one thing I do like, I like a few things. One, we had an item that had 3 items in it, and we got to use that piecemeal with 2 different puzzles. I like that. I do like that the stomp is not locked to having to like lock on to an enemy or get close to, you can use the stomp whenever you want to finish off an enemy, essentially. You can also use it to open crates and stuff that are on the ground, and I really do like that mechanic as well. I wish more survival horror that have that, like, you have to finish them off while they're on the ground, would have just a dedicated, you can just stomp whenever you want, kind of like Dead Space. Dead Space is a good example of, like, you shoot their legs off and you can just step on them and sometimes kill them, depending on which difficulty you're playing. But so it does have some very good mechanical stuff in it that I would love to see other games pick up on. But that sewer section really took the wind out of the sails, and it's right near, like, right before the finale area, essentially, or the sub finale area. So it was just a little rough, but story-wise. Now, I will try to not spoil anything story-wise. This is basically just going to be my interpretation of kind of what's going on, but I don't want to spoil anything. I won't talk about the ending. I will mention the name of the ending, but I will not say what happens, because, again, this game is brand new, and I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but I do want to get this review out to you guys. Basically, the gist of the story is you are playing Mika, who is looking for her friend, who is like a sister, who went missing a few months prior. It's set in this tech-noir world where there's some advancements in technology that doesn't really play too much of a part in the overall story. But basically, you go to an area that's no longer populated, or it's supposed to be no longer populated, because a company essentially took over the area and started trying to revitalize it, but in essence ended up just destroying the area. Again, we're not going to get into too spoilers, because I think discovering what they're doing and why is part of the thing of it. But the main takeaway I think from this is there's a lot of iconography about the heart, and it's like someone being your heart or someone being very important to you. Like there's a lot of that in the game, and I think that's kind of the messaging. I will say the messaging and the name, Hollowbody, I didn't really get a grasp for why that was the focus, and the messaging, I'm not quite sure what it was. I don't know if that's because of the ending we got. And to clarify, we got the ending called the Riven ending. I won't say any more than that, but it looks like there are multiple endings. But I'm not sure where the messaging's going. And with a survival horror, especially things that are more like on the side of like Silent Hill, the messaging needs to come through in a lot of ways. And I didn't really feel, from a story standpoint, that I got any information about Mika, right? We have these scenes where we have her talking to the person she's looking for in the past. We don't see anything, we just hear it. Which, by the way, the voice acting in this game is actually really, really good. I do appreciate the voice acting in this game. They did an excellent job, so kudos to you guys. But I didn't really get the messaging. Like, I'm guessing it's supposed to reference like a body without a heart, like that. That's why it's Hollowbody. But I don't know. It just there's a lot of like design about like dehydration, malnutrition, stuff like that, being like drained into nothingness. So like there is stuff there, but I just don't feel like it like coherently connects very well. I think it's just pieces of like things that you can grab onto, and they all kind of mess around the whole subject of like loss and being deprived of rights and being deprived of natural resources and stuff like that. Which once you're turned into a skeleton, you're hollow. You go hollow, as they would say in the Dark Souls community. But overall, I don't think the story's bad. I think it has a lot of room for growth. We did see something after the credits, after our ending, that leads me to believe that there might be something more. And I'm not sure what that is. Again, based on our ending, I don't know if we got a good ending or a bad ending. It seemed like a bad ending, and I'm not sure what the flags are for a good ending, bad ending. But anywho, that's basically it for the story. So overall, I think I enjoyed my time with this. To be honest, overall, it is a very solid, like, 5-hour survival horror experience. I don't think it does anything too well. Like, I'm not thinking about the game going, I wonder about this thing, or I wonder about that thing. It is very, it's like a very concise, not because of the length, but because of there's kind of a lack of outside thinking to be done, I think. And it just, I don't know. Like, again, I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it really does anything intriguing. Like, when you have tech noir, there's a lot of stuff you can play with. And I feel like the tech noir stuff, basically, the only reason that's established is because hover cars. That's it. Like, I like hover cars and a radio, but the radio just looks like a normal, like, radio without an antenna. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like the tech noir stuff shows in at all. And I feel like you could do some really interesting stuff with that. Stuff, obviously a lot of stuff has been done with that stuff, but I think also the story, if I think if the creature design and the level design fed into the story a bit more, because the only time that, like, the level really feeds into the stuff feels like at the very end of the game. And if you've played other survival horror games, specifically like the Silent Hills, the way things are designed in those areas, and of course, I know it's a solo dev. I'm not saying this dev should have made Silent Hill. Let me clarify that. This is for a solo dev. This is awesome, by the way. for a solo dev, kudos. Like, I don't want you to take this critique as in like, oh, this game is terrible, go play something else. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like there's other things that could be explored here, and if they do intend to keep moving on with a survival horror aspect, there are things to think about when moving forward with those. That's kind of what I'm getting at here, because I know people are like, wow, you just hate this game, don't you? No, I don't hate the game or anything. The reason why I like critiquing is because it helps people improve, and I want to see more from this developer, right? I think this developer has a solid start and a solid grasp on how to create a game. Now I want to see that developer take it to the next level, right? That's kind of where I'm at with it. But I would love if the level design and the enemy design and all that stuff kind of fed more into the story with Mika, or at least the tech noir story, because it seems to only connect with the what's happened in the area, but what happened in the area basically doesn't really affect Mika or the person she's looking for at all until the end of the game. Like they do mention that Mika's mom was one of the survivors of what happened in the area, and that's basically it. That's like her only connection to this area. So I really wish there was more to bring the story towards and focus in on Mika, because I still feel like there's so much more I want to learn about Mika and her feelings and her desires and all of that stuff that just doesn't get explored as much. But overall, the game is $17, and for a 5-hour experience and a solid one. We ran into a few bugs, few audio bugs, a few aiming bug stuff, but nothing game breaking. I still think that I would recommend this game. I think this is a good example on how to get started with survival horror. Again, I think there's a lot of room for improvement. And I would love to see this developer take like level design to the next level, or creature design to the next level. Now, creature design is very difficult. I know that, believe me, from experience, I know how hard creature design can be. But level design you can use just as much as creature design, and I would really love to see this developer do more like survival horror stuff, but focus in on trying to make the world feel like it's about our character instead of our character moving through a world that something's happened in, right? It feels more apocalyptic and less like character focused. But anyways, I do recommend it. $17 is an absolute steal for this game. You can play it again. There's an extra difficulty. There's a new game plus. You can even play new game plus in first person if you are so inclined. There's a bunch of stuff to find. I don't know how many endings there are overall. I think looking at it, there's probably at least 2, possibly 3. So that's my recommendation. Play Hollowbody. $17. It's for 5 hours and potentially more if you want to get the other endings and stuff. Like, I think it's worth your time. I really do. I think they did a very good job as a solo dev. They absolutely blew me away. Like, the fact that this game was basically made by one person is kind of crazy. So the kudos to, I believe, what's the name of the studio? It's like Headwear, I believe. Yeah, Headwear Games. Absolute kudos to you. I think it looks great. It actually runs really well, other than a few, like I said, other than a few bugs, which I'm sure with everybody playing it, I'm sure you'll have a pile of stuff to work on to make sure you clean up the experience. But overall, my recommendation is play this game. $17 on Steam. Absolutely worth it. Honestly, I would love to see some physical media with this game. I really hope it takes off, and I really hope more people play it. But that's going to be it for the review video. Thank you so much for being here and enjoying that playthrough or this review. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, like, and comment. If you got a different ending than us, leave us a comment. If you want to see more reviews, I have plenty more on the channel, and there's more coming. Every time we beat a game, I am making a review. So if you want to see my thoughts on a bunch of different games, especially retro games, you do want to subscribe. So I will see you all in the next review. Bye-bye.